Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome back to the Jeshua Channelings by Pamela Kribbe. If you are following along with me in the book, we are on page 69, and we are at From Ego to Heart 1. 4 stages in the transformation of consciousness. In the previous chapters, we have described the historical background of the Lightworker's journey from ego-based to heart-based consciousness. This part will be dedicated entirely to the psychological characteristics of this transformation. We have divided up this process into 4 steps or stages, which we sum up again for the sake of clarity. Number 1, being unsatisfied by what ego-based consciousness has to offer you, longing for, quote, something else. This is the beginning of the end of ego-based consciousness. Number 2, becoming aware of your ties to ego-based consciousness, recognizing and releasing the emotions and thoughts that go with it. For me, this is beginning to see that I've been programmed, that we've all been programmed from time immemorial, just because we all had the wrong information and we were walking lockstep because this is what we're supposed to do, right? We just programmed each other. But now becoming aware of your ties to ego-based consciousness, which for me equates to that programming, because that ego has been programmed, man, with all kinds of incorrect information and belief systems and all kinds of stuff, right? Recognizing and releasing the emotions and thoughts that go with it. This also includes for me trauma, because trauma is part of the educational was what I was getting ready to say there, but because that's what it is. It is programming is also it's education, right? It's how we learn how to be, right? In this realm. And because nobody had the exact truth of who we were, we're walking around doing stuff we really don't need to do. And that created a whole bunch of trauma, which then stacks up in there and has all kinds of emotions and thoughts and all kinds of stuff wrapped up in it that are all misinformation, disinformation. See, this is considered the middle of the end. Number 3, letting the old ego-based energies inside you die, throwing off that cocoon, becoming your new self. This is the end of the end. Number 4, the awakening of a heart-based consciousness within you, motivated by love and freedom, helping others make the transition. I really do feel, and I kind of see it, where some of us started this transition a little early in order to emanate this. That's part of that. And it has to, I guess it has to do with our direct involvement with, setting all this silly stuff up to begin with, right? Stage 1, the ego does not fulfill anymore. The transition from ego-based consciousness to heart-based consciousness starts with the experience of an inner void. Things that used to draw your full attention or situations that you got completely caught up in now leave you empty or uninspired. Somehow things seem to have lost their usual meaning and purpose. Before this void is experienced, consciousness is in the grip of fear and the ensuing need to constantly reaffirm itself. It is continually looking for outside validation because it is unwilling to face the underlying fear of rejection and loneliness. Wow, I always look so green to myself. What is this? I don't, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I look so green. I don't know what that's. Possibly, there's got to be something with this camera that's not right. I'll have to work on that next time. Sorry, guys. If it bothers you, don't look. Just close your eyes and listen. It's apparently bothering me. This deep fear and the need for outside validation may long to be hidden as the true motive. This deep fear and the need for outside validation may long be hidden as the true motive for many of your actions. Your whole life may be built upon them without you being consciously aware of it. I actually had to ask myself about this whole doing YouTube thing. That's why I want to be very clear. It's how I have to do this. If I don't do this way, I don't do it at all. And so it's so helpful for me personally. I got to do it this way. Perhaps you are aware of a vague restlessness or tension within, but often a major event such as the breakup of a relationship, the passing of a loved one, or the loss of a job has to come along to invite you to truly examine what this tension or unrest is about. Yeah, in my case, I was running myself right off the planet. I was running so hard for myself. When the ego is the center of your being, your consciousness and your emotional life are in a state of cramp. I just said that to someone. It's tense up. You cringe in fear, and from that position, you are constantly on the defensive. When you're in the ego stage, you always experience lack, a need for more. The foundation of your thoughts, feelings, and actions is a black hole, a void which can never be filled completely. It is a hole of fear, a place covered in shadows, since you turn your consciousness away from it. In the shadows, there is a void which you are vaguely aware of, but you don't want to go there. In this stage, your relationship with God, or all that is marked by feelings of separation. Deep within you, you feel alone and abandoned. You feel like you are a broken, meaningless fragment with no purpose. And as you cover up your fear of this, you only experience it indirectly as shadow. People are terrified of facing the inner void with full awareness. They are terrified of meeting their inner darkness head on and investigating it, which is why I think I called myself a dark worker. I wanted to dive in there and see what's in there. Let's see. Let me dive down deep inside myself and see what's in that dark space. However, if you don't face it, it is still there, and you will need to develop, quote, coping strategies to make life bearable. The ego's strategy is always to deal with the problem at the periphery instead of at the center. The ego seeks to solve the problem by turning your consciousness outward. It tries to alleviate the inner pain by feeding you with outside energies. The energy is the energies it is particularly fond of are acknowledgement, admiration, power, attention, etc. In this way, the ego seemingly creates an answer to the soul's deep longing for oneness, safety, and love. This longing in itself is entirely valid and genuine. And I want to say this in right here because it was shown to me earlier as I was reading that. For me, I now see that the only separation we actually have is in these physical vessels. We actually are still all one and yet separate. And the separate portion of us is the only privacy you actually have. Because no matter how much you try to convey your experiences of this life, another being, no matter how close they are to you, even if they grew up in the same household with you, will ever completely understand because they haven't lived inside this physical vessel and been exposed to, because we are an amalgamation of all of that. That's why, for me, this longing in itself is entirely valid and genuine. That sort of loneliness that we feel, but realizing that that loneliness is simply my own privacy changes everything. Because I can share any of my self, and if it's not totally understood, that's okay. It can be mostly understood, and it certainly can be felt now that I understand it so much better. This is God calling you. It is your own nature calling out to you. You are God. God is the energy of oneness, safety, and love. Everyone longs for the unconditional love and embrace of the energy you call God. In essence, this longing is the longing for being totally aware of and therefore one with your own divine self. Your own divinity is your entrance into unconditional love. You can only find it by going through the fear and darkness surrounding it. And this you do by turning inward instead of outward. You do it by using your consciousness as a light that chases the shadows away. Consciousness is light. Therefore, it does not need to fight darkness. Its mere presence dissolves it. By turning your consciousness inward, miracles will indeed befall you. I honestly, I feel like in many ways I am that living miracle because I'm really not supposed to be here in some terminologies, right? The ego, however, proceeds in exactly the opposite way. It registers the need for love and safety, but it aims at answering this need without facing inner darkness and fear. To accomplish this, it applies a certain, quote, trick. It transforms the need for love into the need for approval and recognition from other people. It transforms the need for oneness and harmony into the need for excelling and being better than others. Once you think that to be loved is to be admired for your achievements, you don't need to go inside for love anymore. You simply have to work harder. In this way, the ego strives to keep the lid on the pan of fear. Your original longing for love and blissful unity has now become distorted into the desire for recognition. And trust when I say this starts in infancy. We learn how to turn that. It's a programmed condition that we all actually have. You are constantly looking for outside validation, which provides for some temporary reassurance. Your consciousness is essentially focused on the outer world. You rely on other people's judgments, and you are very edgy about what people think of you. This is highly important to you since your self esteem depends on it. In fact, your sense of self worth sinks lower and lower since you are giving your power away to outside forces who judge you for your outside performances, not for your true being. That's why I always say, I am not everybody's cup of tea, but I prefer that you like the true being because that's okay. Not everybody is for everybody else, right? Meanwhile, the deep-seated sense of abandonment and loneliness is not alleviated. It actually gets worse since you refuse to look at it. And that's where that what you resist persists thing. That which you don't want to look at becomes your quote shadow side. Fear, anger, and negativity can roam there and influence you, intensified by the refusal to go within. The ego can be very stubborn when it comes to suppressing certain doubts, hunches, and feelings. It will not release control easily. Nope, that's true. That's true. I'm sorry, I just felt smarmy. It's up a little bit there. That's what I call my ego. What you perceive as evil in your world is always the result of clinging to personal power. It is the refusal to give up control and accept inner fear and darkness. The first step to enlightenment is surrendering to what is. Enlightenment means that you allow all aspects of your being into the light of your consciousness. Enlightenment does not mean you are fully conscious of everything within you, but that you are willing to face every aspect consciously. Enlightenment equals love. Love means that you accept yourself as you are. The inner darkness, that sense of abandonment in the depths of your soul that you all fear so much, is temporary. This ego stage is just one step in a large development and unfolding of consciousness. In this stage, the first leap is taken towards an individualized divine consciousness. The birth of individual consciousness, the birth of you as a separate soul, goes together with the experience of being left alone, of being separated from your mother/father. It is comparable to the trauma of birth in your physical world. In the womb, the baby experiences an oceanic sense of oneness with the mother. When it is born, it becomes a unity unto itself. Because of this birth trauma, speaking now of the birth of the soul takes with it a sense of being torn apart. It had to part with everything it took for granted. The newborn soul longs for a return to the semi-conscious state of oneness from which it came and which it considers to be its home. Because this is impossible, the soul experiences great fear and feelings of desolation and doubt. This inner pain and disorientation will gradually form the breeding ground for the ego's seizure of power. The soul has to deal with the fear and the pain, and the ego promises to provide a solution. The ego holds up the prospect of power and control to the soul consciousness. I swear I'm seeing a 2-year-old in my mind's eye right now. The soul, feeling powerless and lost, gives in and puts the ego in command. The ego is that part of the soul which is oriented towards the material external world. Now, the 2-year-old understands that he can move and do things on his own. That's why I'm being shown that, right? And that he has some autonomy here. In essence, the ego is the soul's instrument for manifesting itself as a physical being within time and space. The ego provides consciousness with focus. It makes consciousness specific instead of oceanic, here and now instead of all over the place. The ego translates inner impulses into specific material form. Now, I've said many, 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 many times on this channel before I ever read this that we create as we move. We don't even know that we are actually creating. When we can't, well, I do now, but I mean, that's the one thing too that I suspect this. I have nothing I could well, no, I have some things I could point to for myself. It is that part of you which bridges the gap between the non-physical spiritual part of you and the physical part. For the soul, as a non-physical spiritual being, it is quite unnatural to be fixated in time and space. The soul is essentially independent of any material form. When you have dreams of flying around, you are contacting this independent and free part of yourself. I've had that as a child. I had that a lot. The ego, on the other hand, binds and fixates. It enables you to function in physical reality. As such, the ego plays a very valuable role that has nothing to do with good or bad. When it operates in a balanced situation, the ego is a neutral and indispensable tool for the soul who dwells on earth in a physical body. However, when the ego starts to rule soul consciousness instead of functioning as its tool, the soul gets out of balance. When the ego dictates to the soul that this, and in parentheses, that is the hallmark of ego-based consciousness. The ego will not simply translate inner impulses into material form, but it will control and selectively suppress those impulses. The ego then presents you with a distorted image of reality. The unbalanced ego is always in pursuit of power and control, and it will interpret all facts as positive or negative in this light. And I'm convinced that part of that has to do with the programming and conditioning that we're all exposed to. It is quite instructive to uncover your own power base, and control based motives in your daily goings about. In other words, seeing your own programming and conditioning is so very instructive. Try to notice how often you want to bend things or people to your will, even if it is for a Noble cause. I did that with the quotations, not them. How often do you get annoyed by things not going your way? It is important to realize that beneath the need for control is always a fear of losing control. So ask yourself, what is the risk of releasing control, of letting go of the need for predictability? What is my deepest fear? The price you are now paying for keeping things, quote, under control is that your attitude to life is tense and restrained. When you dare to live from inner inspiration and only do what brings you joy, this will create a natural and true order for your life. You will feel relaxed and happy without the need to mold the flow of life. And I have to tell you, once I stopped beating myself up about not being on the channel and just letting it be, it a whole bunch of stuff shifted. This is living without fear, living with full trust in what life will bring you. Can you do that? For a young soul, the pitfall of ego based consciousness is nearly inevitable. The ego offers a way out of the problem of fear and abandonment. It shifts your attention from, quote, what there is on the inside to, quote, what you can get from the outside world. This is not a real solution to the problem, but it does seem to bring relief for a while. Exerting power and control over your surroundings may give you a temporary satisfaction or kick. There is a brief sense of being loved, admired, and respected. This soothes your pain for a while, but it is short-lived, and you have to exert yourself again to stand out, to be even better, nicer, or more helpful. Please be aware that under the flag of the ego, you can be both sweet and nasty, both giving and taking, both dominant and subservient. Much that is given seemingly unselfishly is an unconscious call for attention, love, and recognition from the receiver of the gift. When you are always caring for and giving to others, you are simply hiding from yourself. So, to understand what ego domination means, you do not necessarily have to think of cruel tyrants such as Hitler or Saddam Hussein. Keep it simple. Watch yourself in your daily life. The presence of ego domination can be recognized by the need to control things. An example is that you want certain people to behave in particular ways. To make this happen, you display certain patterns of behavior. You are compliant and sweet, for example, and try not to hurt someone's feelings ever. There is a need for control behind this behavior. Because I want you to love me, I will not go against you. This line of thinking is based on fear. It is fear of standing on your own, fear of being rejected and abandoned. What appears to be sweet and nice is in fact a form of self-denial. This is the ego at work. Now, there must be something weird going on with the computer because I just saw my face change from green to red. That's so weird. As long as the ego governs your soul, you will need to feed yourself with the energy of others in order to feel good. You seem to have to deserve acceptance from other people, from some authority outside of you. However, the world around you is not fixed or stable. You can never rely on the permanent adherence of whatever it is you rely on, be it spouse, boss, parents. That is why you have to quote, work all the time, being always on the lookout for quote, portions of approval coming your way. This explains the tense and nervous state of mind that anyone stuck in the ego stage is permanently in. The ego cannot provide you with true love and self esteem. The solution it offers for the trauma of abandonment is, in fact, a bottomless pit. The true mission of the young soul consciousness is to become the parent it has lost. Please be aware that the structure of earth life, meaning the process of starting out as a helpless baby and growing up to be a self contained adult, often invites you to do precisely that. How often the key to real happiness in your lives lie in this, that you become your own mother and father and give to yourself the love and understanding you have missed and are missing from others. On the larger metaphysical level, we have been speaking of this. On the larger metaphysical level we have been speaking of, this means come to the understanding that you are God, not one of his little lost sheep. This is the realization that will bring you home. This is the realization that will bring you to the heart of who you are, which is love and divine power. The end of the ego stage comes within sight when the soul realizes that it is repeating the same cycle of actions and thoughts over and over again. The ego loses its dominance when the soul grows tired and weary of struggling all the time for an ever elusive treasure. The soul then starts to suspect that the promises of the game it is in are false and that there is really nothing there to win, for it to win. When the soul grows tired of trying and being on top of it all the time, it lets go of control a little. With less energy going out to controlling thoughts and behavior, an energetic space opens up, which allows for new and different experiences. And what I'm being shown here is this is often why, uh, in many ways, uh, it feels like or would appear as though things get to the absolute edge before something really gets in there, or and it's because that space hasn't been opened up yet, is created by whatever the angst was. I see that very clearly here in this what's being shared. So I want to read this over again. With less energy going out to controlling thoughts and behavior, an energetic space opens up, which allows for new and different experiences. I see myself being throwing myself down on my knees and saying, "That's it. I know I've become such a burden to my family. Either show me the way or take me now, because I've had." That was me opening up space and asking to be shown the way and keeping that space open for the way to be shown. At first, when you enter this stage, you may just feel very tired and empty inside. Things you deemed important before may appear entirely meaningless to you now. Also, fears may surface that have no clear or immediate cause. It may be vague fears of death or of losing your loved ones. Also, anger may come up with regard to situations in your job or your marriage. Everything that seemed self-evident is now in doubt. That's why I said everything I've ever been shown that is this way is now up for a reevaluation. Is it actually what I've been told? That which ego based consciousness set out to prevent happens at last. Gradually, the lid is lifted from the pan, and all kinds of uncontrollable emotions and fears pop out and enter your consciousness, seeding doubt and confusion in your life. Until that moment, you were functioning largely on autopilot. And some people will call that demo mode or also non-player character. I've heard that quite a lot. Like like we actually have beings here that aren't real. But hey, maybe, I don't know. Many thought and feeling patterns within you happened automatically. You let them pass by unquestioned. This gave unity and stability to your consciousness. However, when your consciousness grows and expands, your personality gets split in two. One part of you wants to hold on to the old ways. The other part of you questions these ways and confronts you with uncomfortable feelings such as anger, fear, and doubt. The expansion of consciousness that occurs at the end of the ego stage is therefore often experienced as a spoil sport, an unwelcome intruder which spoils the game. This new awareness unsettles everything that seemed obvious before, and it awakens emotions within you that you don't know how to deal with. And it will be different for each one as you go along, as to what you're learning, what's coming for you, how things are unfolding, all of that. When you start to doubt ego based patterns of thinking and doing, a whole new side of you enters your consciousness. It is a part of you that loves truth instead of power. Living according to the dictates of the ego is very repressive. You are serving a little fearful dictator that aims at power and control, not just over your environment, but especially over you. Your spontaneous flow of feeling and intuiting is restrained by this dictator. The ego does not like spontaneity so much. It holds you back from freely expressing your feelings, since feelings and emotions are uncontrollable and unpredictable, which is dangerous to the ego. The ego works with masks. If your ego dictates to you, quote, be sweet and considerate to win people's sympathy, end quote, you will systematically suppress feelings of displeasure and anger within you. If you start to doubt the viability of this dictate, these suppressed emotions come up again at once. Feelings are not eliminated by being suppressed. They live on and gain in intensity the longer you suppress them. And quite frankly, they actually come out sideways and they can hurt the physical vessel, in my view. Once the soul experiences the emptiness and the doubt that is so characteristic of the ending ego stage, it is possible to meet and face all the feelings and emotions that were hidden in the dark before. These pent up emotions and feelings are the entrance gate to your greater self. By exploring what you truly feel instead of what you are supposed to feel, You restore your spontaneity and integrity, that part of you, which is also called your quote, inner child. Getting in touch with your true feelings and emotions sets you on the road to liberation. The transition to a heart based consciousness has then begun. Ooh. All right. Well, that's it for From Ego to Heart 1. Of course, Ego to Heart 2 is next. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you will continue to move towards that which brings you the highest joy in each moment it presents itself to you. If you've not subscribed, would love to have you do so. Um, And if you feel you would like to have a conscious conversation with me or any one member or all of the members of the New Light team, reach out to me at consciousconversationcentral@gmail.com. And you can always reach some of the New Light team at knewlightstreaminglove@gmail.com. Until next time, be well, my friends.